Let me start by just a basic introduction to the identity activities at eBay so that you know how to frame the rest of my conversation. We started like a whole lot of people with delegated authorization way before OAuth. That was a precursor to OAuth called auth and auth, starting from 2003, 2004 timeframe. And this is basically the flow that you go to and allow someone to make calls on your behalf to the resources that you have on eBay. And from there, we also are identity providers for some of our properties that eBay bought over time, and some of the relying parties that we have are third-party developers whose 100% of their user base are actually eBay users, eBay sellers. And for them, it doesn't make sense to have the registration and password flows and all of that stuff. And then recently, we have become an identity consumer and relying party as well, although we have not released it yet completely. And I want to share some of the experiences that we have gained here and here with some of you guys, mostly as a relying party. Unfortunately, I don't have any screenshots or any pictures because we haven't technically released the product yet. I was not able to get the approval for showing all that stuff. But I'll promise in the next meeting probably I can show you the actual screenshots and some statistics that we collect on these flows. So this is identity activities on eBay. Now, we are not technically a merchant, we are a marketplace, but we talk to a lot of merchants, talk to a lot of sellers, and this is the main reasons, as far as I can tell, that a merchant would become a relying party, would agree to consume somebody else's identity. The first is user acquisition. If the identity providers that they want to subscribe to or they want to become a relying party actually generates traffic for them, in the case of like Facebook does, and some other identity providers might as well. Then there's personalization. When they get these identities from the identity providers, they want to have enough information in the profile so that they can personalize it in a meaningful fashion. And the third reason is the money shot, is the transaction. So for a merchant, everything goes through this funnel, eventually leading to a transaction. And if you're an identity provider, if you in some way meaningfully contribute to these three activities, then a merchant might consider being a relying party. And if you're not, then merchants simply don't. And if you look at the universe of relying parties today, you have blog sites and you've got content sites, curated content sites, Huffington Post of the world, and also Universal Music Group. And then you've got retailers like Target and Walmart and a slew of millions of small retailers, small shops, mom and pop shops. They're not relying parties. And the reason they're not relying parties today is because, except maybe for this part, it does not meaningfully help them with these other things. I mean, if the user comes back and you give me the same identifier again and again, that's good, kind of, I recognize the user. But if you don't give me enough good information so that I can personalize it, I can personalize my experience meaningfully, or you don't help me with the transaction, which almost none do, then there's not enough reasons for him to actually do any of this stuff. And by the way, a merchant wants to do all of this stuff, especially transactions, if they become an identity provider, relying party, with less rate of fraud, with less rate of defect in their transactions. So these are important stuff for them. And this is what we see why merchants, or at least the universal merchants that we looked at, are very slow in adopting being any relying party to anyone. I mean, they're curious about it. They look at all of these social logins and they ask us about it, but none of them are actually investing or seriously looking at it because the value proposition is not very clear to them yet. Now, these are the core decisions, and again, I try to condense it to some core observations that I've made. These are the core decisions that they have to make. First, what kind of relying party they want to be. They want to use it for sign-up, like Eric was talking about. Do they want to use it for actual authentication every single time? Do they want to just use it for personalization and then ask for the user to actually create a real username and a password down the road when they interacted with the site several times? Or during the transactions, they actually get them all the other information and get them to, quote unquote, really sign in. this is one of the decisions that they have to make, and there's still people coming on all sides of these decisions, and different merchants are struggling with it at different levels. The second one, and that's an interesting one, is all the legacy code and the stuff that they have to do. This issue of legacy code and the legacy mentality actually is very important because a lot of these merchants, if you look at it, they build their applications in a way that the application can only consume their own internally provisioned identity. That's how they built it. And now they have to actually make a lot of investment in their code and a lot of investment in their systems to be able to consume somebody else's identity. And that's one of the reasons for resistance. And then they also have to make some of the system changes for I don't know, monitoring reasons and fraud reasons and all sorts of other things. And all of these contributes to a little bit of a resistance in whatever technical resources that they have. Meaning that even if from the business point of view, from the operations point of view, they get an agreement to become a relying party to somebody, then there are some issues on the technical side. Then there's the whole issue of user experience that you guys all alluded to and talked about, and I'm not going to go through the details on what we have seen. First, because I don't have the screenshots and I'm not authorized to actually talk about all the stuff that we looked at, because the product is not released yet. Also because other people can actually talk about this more intelligently than I can. And the last one that I want to talk about it a little bit more is, okay, now I want to become a relying party, which identity provider I have to be the relying party for? And there are certain consideration that goes into here that I want to talk about now. So, by the way, any questions so far? Anything that, especially on the retailer side, have you seen the same type of dynamics that I'm describing, actually? I see a few nods, that's good. So let me focus on IDP. And not that the other ones are not important. The other ones are actually very important. But I want to focus on this one because we've dealt with it recently a little bit more. Now, the issue of IDP, the way I characterize it, or internally I talked about it, is I characterize it as an issue of pizza and delivery. Delivery is important. You want to know if there's a phone number, you can call someone. Delivery is equivalent to OpenID and OAuth and all the protocols. But at the end of the day, the whole point is the pizza. What you care about is the pizza and the quality of the pizza. In terms of identity, this is equivalent to, you got the protocol, which is equivalent to delivery, and then you got the actual identity, or the profile. What's important is the profile, and the quality of that profile, and to the extent to which the profile allows merchants to do those three things, and make it either easier or makes it worse, makes it efficient or not. These are the most important things. Of course, I take this for granted. As a marketplace or as a relying party, I take the operational worthiness for granted. If you're not operational worthy, meaning that if you're an IDP that it's not scalable or reliable or secure, then the whole bets are off. So this operational worthiness notwithstanding, because I'm assuming you have it, otherwise we are not even talking about this, then there's some protocol issues and there are some identity issues, some profile issues that we have seen. On the protocol side, there are a couple of things. What's important is it has to be standard-based. Honestly, from our point of view, we are a relying party in marketplace when we play the role of a relying party. We don't personally care whether you use OpenID or you use OAuth 1A or OAuth 2.0. We deal with all of it. And this is, in a way, particular to eBay because it's a bigger company with more development resources, and we can actually do all of that stuff. Small companies use aggregators, and probably, again, the protocol will not eventually be as important. As a technical community, myself included, we focus on the protocols almost exclusively. It's very important for us. It's intriguing. It's technical stuff. But as we have seen, the protocol really doesn't matter. You implement it, somebody implements it, at the end the protocol doesn't matter. However, it has to satisfy certain things. One of the things that we really want to be able to do, and today we can't really do with any identity providers, is we want to participate in that authorization flow. The authorization flow today is very standardized, and for good reasons. I mean, I understand the argument on the side of standardization, but there should be some ways for a relying party to participate in the authorization flow, customize it in a certain way. branded in a certain way or might have some form of a wording in the authorization flow. Even agreement with terms and conditions, it's much easier to have one flow as opposed to now when you land on my site, then I ask you all of these other shebang, my language and my legal stuff. It makes the proposition much more compelling if a relying party can participate in this. This is some of the things that we actually wanted and couldn't find anyone that offers it. This is another one. Support for relying party, that would be us. Logical hierarchy. That might sounds kind of obscure, but if you look at eBay, I mean, eBay is a large organization, and within the organization we have, I don't know, several apps, multiple apps. And what we have seen is, for example, Facebook. Every single app gets an app ID. Facebook doesn't recognize this hierarchy of relying parties. And to the end user, it looks like eBay tries to connect to me 5 times. Like, why are you trying to connect to me 5 times and asking for getting the same amount of information from me 5 times? And also, from the operational point of view, it does not allow us to control these 5 applications very effectively. To say, okay, you can get this many authorizations, and your application does not these authorizations. Facebook does not understand the hierarchy involved, so we can go to Facebook and say, we are eBay. And a user can connect to an eBay as an organization, and these are the sets of information that we want as an organization from a user. Then if and when you establish that this application is part of this organization, then grant them the same thing. Or maybe this application wants one more thing, but don't ask for the whole set of consent. Also customize the flow so that the user understands that this application has some relationship with the larger organization. This is missing today from almost all the identity providers that I know. The other one is this little thing. It's not in the grand scheme of things very difficult to implement, but it's annoying. And that's this notion of forced authentication, something that SAML had, but somehow a lot of identity providers don't provide. Ashish is telling me that PayPal does provide this. Where is Ashish? Oh.
I can do that with Max already. That's very symbiotic of you guys.
It's effectively part of the ICANN protocol.
Yeah, but like, for example, with Facebook Connect, you're not finding any easy way to do this. So this is the protocol part, and then this is more like on the delivery side. It's not even talking about pizza. Now, on the pizza side, which is what is a lot more important aspect to commerce side, is this. Start with small ones. We need authentication context. Till the day that some identity provider comes and says, you know what, up to $5,000, whatever this guy does on your website, I cover it, right? Then I don't care about authentication context, probably. But till then, well, I'm assuming that would be a very, very long time to come. We need authentication context. We need to know how this user was authenticated. Was it username password? Was it username password or a PIN? Did you have some other more magical way like Ashish does with like this biological magic that he claims to have? And this is important. We need to know this authentication context. The IP address that the guy comes from. All sorts of other things. Because a merchant cares about this stuff, because at the end of the day, merchant is on the hook for all the fraudulent activities that goes on their side. The other one, again, bread and butter stuff. ATO recovery and notification. ATO is account takeover. This is eBay speak. That means that if you're an identity provider, first of all, I want to know whether you actively detect account takeovers. And if you do, and if you figure out somebody's account was taken over, how am I going to know about this as a relying party? And if your answer to both of these questions is none, then you're not very attractive as a relying party to me, regardless of the protocols that you use, right? This is again very important from mitigations of risk and convincing people on your business side that being the word relying party is a scary word. I mean, just think about it a little bit from a point of view of a business person. The phrase relying party is scary. I'm relying party on what? For what? I mean, it's not very clear at all. And when you mix it with this type of stuff, you get a lot of questions that you don't have an easy answer for. The other one is this data quality. We're talking about profiles, and I've seen this Facebook profile so many times. But what's the quality of these data? If you're saying this is this guy's address, do you know that this is this guy's address? Or the guy simply asserted it himself and then now you're reporting it to me? And if that's the case, are you telling me this is the case? Are you telling me this is self-asserted versus somebody else actually? I verified it with someone else. Do you know that this is this guy's shipping address? Or like she said, do you know that not only this is the shipping address, but somebody actually sent something to this shipping address and everything went fine? These are the informations that are actually important. It makes a lot of difference. Phone number, same thing. Do you know this is the phone number? Do you know if it's a cell phone or it's a landline? The rest of the information, for example, you send us, the quality of it is important. The other one is this basic unification of data. I mean, IDS, again, is internal suite for identity data sets. If these things change, we want to know. For a number of reasons, obviously, you want your data to be up to date, and it's a better service for consumers if data changes, you know, and they don't have to change it all over the place. But also, sometimes these identity data sets, first name, last name, shipping address, email address, phone number, and any of the secrets, sets of secrets that you have, the change in these things are leading indications for some sort of fraudulent activity or suspicious activity that is going on. So that's important to know. Again, nobody provides that. Entity resolution. Now this is far in advance, way probably next 3 or 5 years. If the use case for this is this: someone comes to my website from your identity provider and will do some stuff on my website that I don't like, and I suspend this guy, or I kick him out of my site. Does that guy get to go to your identity provider, create another account, and come back, and it's completely unknown to me? Or do you have some system that if the guy comes back in your site, even with different sets of information or attempt at disguise, when this guy, you're reporting it back to me as a blind party, are you going to tell me that I suspect this identifier is equal to that identifier that I've told you about 2 months ago? These are all higher value added stuff. It's not about protocol, it's not about any of this stuff. It's about really the profile, the quality of the identity, the quality of the product you provide. I mean, this space of identity is in infancy still. And as such, we are still focusing on the plumbing, on basically building the whole system and then making sure that the identity moves from one place to another place. People can syntactically read it, semantically interpret it, but we are not yet talking about the quality of what we are delivering, actually. And this goes to the quality of the delivery, which is eventually important for someone like a commercial entity. The other one is this federated profile. And I don't know if this is the right phrase for it or not, but what I mean by it is this. If I'm using Facebook Connect, what I get is Facebook profile. It's not a federated profile, it's Facebook profile. It's not Facebook profile plus Netflix, favorite movies, plus stuff that the guy looked at Amazon, plus some of the interesting auctions that he's looking at eBay. It's not a federated type of an entity. It's very clear why Facebook doesn't want to do it. But from a merchant point of view, we want as much relevant information as possible, given the user control. I'm not undermining the user control. But even if the user wants to have an entity that is federated and share that information with certain trusted merchants, they can't do it today because Facebook is only game in town. Google has their own profile. Probably there's some sort of a profile war that comes along in the next, 12 to 24 months, and we've got to figure out how that goes. But a federated way probably is the best way to actually do it. Now, this is on the identity side. Now, I close with some general observations that we have. We see this continuation of this trend, that simply because I use your service does not mean I'll have an account with you. We see that actually. We have a lot of sellers that sell with us and also sell to other channels, including their own site. And we go and talk to them from time to time, and so how's your site doing? And some of them do have username, password registration on their site, and we ask them whether people register on your site, and they don't. They really get dismal results from their own user acquisition activities, getting people to register with it. And it's getting worse. I mean, over time, when we talk to these people, granted, my research is not scientific. I know a few of these guys, maybe about a dozen of these guys personally, and I talk to them. I see them almost every 2 or 3 months, and I ask them, and the trend is just kind of going down. And I suspect it's because people now have the expectation, and it's becoming stronger and stronger, that simply because I visit your site, I'm not registering with your site. So we see that happen. The other one is the likely emergence of a commercial identity provider versus a social identity provider. This is, I'm not yet convinced of it, but I see some supporting evidence that there is a social identity and then there's a commercial identity. It's like who you are in a bar versus who you are in a bank. These are kind of different things. And when you go to a bank, you're much more buttoned up. You have a much more credible set of information. When you go to a bar, you might be a rocker for all I know. I mean, it's completely different sets of stuff. And also the brand that you establish, it makes a big difference. Somebody mentioned, I don't know who, that said if an identity provider is PayPal, then I might say, well, I don't want to pay with PayPal, and I'm not ready to purchase, and I don't want to use that identity, then I'll just leave. We have seen this actually. We have seen this. We talked to a number of people in Europe and in the US. They actually echo that sentiment. And the brand is actually very important. That's why it's difficult to have a brand that has the attribute of a commercial identity plus a social identity. It's not clear in my mind how do you manage that brand really. And final thought is that it's always about pizza. We focus a lot on delivery, but it's always is and will be about the pizza. Thank you very much. That's all I have.